I'm speaking today with Peter Fadde, who is Associate Professor of Instructional Technology at Southern Indiana University. And he's one of the 5 authors in the 2014 WebBall Hitting Challenge. Welcome, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. It's pretty cool to be invited into your group, not really being a hitting coach or a baseball guy, other than having brought my own son and daughter in softball along.
Right. Well, one thing I did notice is you're getting listened to a lot by baseball these days. You had the article in Collegiate Baseball, which is the reason I actually contacted you. You've obviously been busy with some baseball teams and baseball people, talking to them about your whole pitch recognition approach using instructional technology, which is your expertise. So it does tie into baseball quite nicely, but I know in everything there's a starting point. And from what I understand, your starting point was basically something that was going on in Australia.
Yeah, I was actually looking for a dissertation research project. I was working in football as a football video coordinator, so and working on my PhD at the same time. So looking for a project there that would somehow involve computer and video, since that's what I was looking into. And so as I looked into the science of that, I found like a whole body of research. A lot of it in Australia, Australian Institute of Sport, some in Canada, some in England. Those are kind of the hot spots. But where they were really studying these holistic skills like baseball batting, return to serve and tennis and goalie play, hockey, soccer, etc. Things where people react faster than seems possible, and then the experts seem to have all the time in the world. So where does that come from? And when they tested people, it's like in the book that was out, The Sports Gene. I mean, the bottom line there is when they look at these things, it's not a hardware advantage. Okay, it's not superhuman hand-eye coordination. It's not superhuman vision. It's software. It's not a hardware thing. It's a software thing. And the software is somehow our eyes being able to pick up early cues. And so, first of all, it was just interesting that they had studied it and they found that. That experts actually do have an advantage. But what was really interesting was the method they were using to do that. They basically show a video projection or film in the early days, because this goes back into the early 80s, this research, and then they cut it off in time. So you see something like a baseball pitch, okay, and here comes the ball out of the hand, and then it's cut off, just cut to black. They call that occlusion. And so that's my one scientific term that my wife allows me to use. Occlusion, you're cutting it off. And then somebody has to identify what kind of pitch was that, or predict where would it be in the in the strike zone, if it would be in the strike zone. And so that, because that one term, occlusion, the cutting it off, that really is kind of the secret sauce of this whole approach. It's not really that complicated, and it's something that you can bring out of the research lab and into a video study environment, or even basic stand-in drill, that sort of thing. So there's if people care to look it up, there's a series of articles, 3 articles done in USA Today in the last month or so, month and a half, under the title of Hard Knock Life, something like that. But they're about the batters now being behind in pro baseball, and a lot of the focus on pitch recognition. And the third one of those has a major league team we've done some work with, incorporating some drills into their spring training work. And it's very like low overhead stuff. It's a matter of going and standing in, for instance, which everybody says, well, we've been standing in forever. How's that anything? But if we go and we make that batter call the pitch, either as fastball or if you're looking for breaking ball or ball strike, or your pitch, if you're looking at a zone hitting type of thing, you got to call it out loud, yes or no, before the pitch hits the catcher's mitt. I'm talking about a bullpen situation where a pitcher is really working on their bullpen. You've got a catcher there. You've got a coach supervising, but it can be pretty light supervision. And so it's basic stand-in drill that people have been doing forever, but usually very passive. Guys standing there with watching the ball go by.
Right.
Guys watching the ball go by and watching it hit the mitt is not doing this drill right. If he's doing this drill right, he's locked in there like that because he's got to be picking up those cues from the release right now in order to be able to get that out your mouth before the ball hits the catcher's mitt. You've got to make that recognition almost instantaneously.
Okay, so now we're getting into the video aspect of this now, and how you've applied technology into this whole concept of occlusion, into how you using video to kind of force them to do an early recognition of the pitch and not let them sort of recognize it somewhere in the flight path, but early. And so let's talk about that.
That's what you're trying to get to, is early. And so the way that they tested that in the lab, which was with video or film of a picture that was cut off, and that's what, like, I just came back from Cape Cod, where I've been doing tests with the ball players out there, because you've got high performance players on a kind of even playing field, plus they keep really good stats out there. And that involved giving them a test of this occluded video. So some of the video clips, it's all the same picture, are cut off right out of the hand. Some you see a third of the ball flight, some you see all the ball flight. You got to get the pitch type and ball strike from that. But the real challenge then, and I think more of the challenge when we're talking about the young batters, is taking that same principle of occlusion, okay, of cutting it off, to force your eyes, you said it right there, force your eyes to pick up that early information. Because the thing is that our eyes want to naturally track the ball. So like some people will say, oh, well, that's a tracking drill. But it's not a tracking drill. You can make it a tracking drill, and that's fine. Tracking is important. But your eyes naturally do that. I mean, it's an evolutionary thing. You got something hard coming at you really fast, you're going to track it. So you actually have to cut that off. You have to, just like you do in various kinds of physical workouts, where you're trying to isolate a muscle group, you've got to cut off whatever that natural thing is so that it focuses on what isn't very natural, which is picking up that ball out of the hand. And then setting it up so that it's day in, day out. You really can try and incorporate that into drills. So that's kind of the challenge, I think, with the young batters. How do we take some of these principles and just overlay them on routine stuff?
Because you mentioned drills, and the reality is, and your article does get into this, you can't have a theory. You have to take that theory or the discoveries from the research, and you have to have a practical application for any age. In this case, we're concerned about younger ages. That at some point trickles down to the average coach with the average equipment in the average situation. I want to jump ahead to something that I know is coming, because as I understand it, you're developing, or you've licensed some software.
But you don't have to wait for that. You don't. I mean, a dad pitching to a kid can start to involve a low level and keep it kind of fun. Ways that they're recognizing something, even if it's not yet the kind of things, because the guys that they're facing aren't throwing different types of balls for that matter. But they say it's even a matter of trying to palm the ball. Say, hey, some of these I'm throwing you, I'm gonna do the old palm ball. I don't want you to swing it that way. So every third, fourth pitch or whatever, every once in a while, you throw that thing in there and. They're making a decision. You can say, hey, I want you to hit just outside pitches or just inside pitches.
The reality is, you want them to recognize it here, right? You want it to be right here, whatever's happening. You want it as soon as you can.
Sometimes it can be a slight adjustment, I think, in drills, and this is all developing. I'm not trying to tell coaches what to do with this. I'm trying to give them the idea, and I'm hoping that they'll tell me some of the ways that they do that. Like one of the things that some guys do is like a 2-ball flip. Well, everybody does a 2-ball flip, and they'll call out, hit the high ball or hit the low ball.
Yeah, I've done that.
So, in one that the college team developed, guys can do this for each other. And if they don't say anything, you're hitting the high ball. That's a fastball. But if you say change, now they got to readjust their sights and get good contact with that low ball. And they're only, 2 inches apart. If you do the toss nicely, they're only, a couple inches apart. Yeah. And you can kind of scale that to how confident a guy is and get to where you mess with him, and you can see him actually starting into his swing, and you have to change, and he's got, and so now you're simulating the back end of the I see, hands do. That's what we're trying to put together. The late Tony Gwynn had a great comment on that. He said, my eyes see and my hands know what to do. So, the idea is that we've kind of got your brain inserted in during practice, right? While you're trying to learn the thing, and then through reps and reps and reps, you get the brain further and further out of it. And so that when you're out there in the box, your eyes see, and your hands know what to do, so that when a guy's coming out and his eyes pick up that change, that whatever tells him it's a change-up. It might be out of the hand, might be some rotation clues in the zone 2, because we call zone 1 right out of the hand, zone 2 like the middle third, and then zone 3 is down into the hitting zone.
Right.
So you might see something here, your eyes pick it up there. All of this is happening much faster than conscious, and so ultimately you can work either the front end or the back end. Ultimately, what you're trying to build towards is my eyes see and my hands know what to do.
One of the things that has come out of this whole hitting challenge, obviously, when you have 5 different experts, and I know some people are more or less comfortable with that term. They better than guru, I guess. You end up in a situation where inevitably, and I know you said this, and I think the other authors have said it too, that it's not one thing. Pitch recognition is part of the process, as you say. The whole modeling and tracking aspect and timing aspect and everything is another part of it. The hands do, because the hands are in the right position to do, which is what one of the authors is talking about in terms of mechanics. And you've written about this in collegiate baseball, and you've done your studies with various teams of various ages. One of the problems with the hitting challenge, though, is inevitably you have to have somebody declared a winner, and you have to have some people they're not losers. What they are the people that didn't win. It's not like a hard and fast baseball game. There's a winner and a loser. Everybody contributes. Everybody gains from the contributions. Everybody, benefits from it. But because of the nature of the way we do these things, I need to tell you something, and that's in fact that you are the winner. Your essay was considered the one that not only was the best written, but would be the one that people would most likely affect how they change their instruction. And I think what you did in your article and what you've done in this whole process is you've taken the theory and the research, and you've made it accessible to the dad coach. You're making it accessible to the higher level players as well. And I think that's what is key about all of this. I think if any of the authors are looking at what they're doing, they're have to be very good at applying their knowledge to
pretty much every one of the
things.
essays in this group, Richard,
Yeah.
pretty much every one of the essays focus on timing. So I think you're really on the line, and even the ones that weren't directly talking about timing, we're talking about that hitter's confidence.
Yeah.
And so, feeling like you're being aggressive with a plan, feeling like you're in control of the at-bat, is what we're going for. So some of it is the more the confidence sports psychology end of it. But on the mechanics end of it, like I say, it's all the timing. And the nice thing for me about focusing on the front end of that is that you can have different theories about how you're going to approach that ball. It's weight shift or rotational or combo or you can have all kinds of different emphases and position of the head and all kinds of things that you work with it, and they all start with getting early recognition of the pitch. So we're just taking something that really is been long recognized and just trying to take a step further in trying to have systematic ways of building that. Like I said, yes, it's great that we'll have technology. that you'll have an iPad app, and you got a computer center, you got, these things are great, but the thing that really makes a difference is when you really are out there in the bullpen, and you're out there in batting practice, and you're just thinking of these things and working on them. And with these young batters that we're talking about, they may be going, they're working on their mechanical approach, and they're working on this a little bit at the side, and it's not really part of their performance yet. They're just working on it as a side thing.
Right.
So that's why I think it's important to kind of make it fun too, because they might not get it. It's really not something that's going to help them tonight in the bank league or the Colt league.
Yeah.
Or high school.
Yeah.
They start to get to Legion, and of course, different parts of the country have different terminology for this.
Right.
But they're going to get to a level where then these things come together, and that's what we're really hoping to see. Haven't really been at it long enough to follow a player all the way through that sequence, but it sure seems like if you start at age I don't know what, guys just have different ideas. 12, 13, certainly people are. The pitchers are starting to change speeds or try their curveball and that sort of thing. So, the hope is that if you're doing this work, at some point they come together here, and then it helps them advance faster.
Peter, makes sense to me. Made sense to a lot of people. I want to thank you for doing this, participating, and for all the reasons you say you aren't a baseball guy, you are now, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Richard.